Join the Friends of the Library if you are not a friend. And also, if you have a little pet at home and you would like for them to be a friend of the library, Vivian Fleming will be selling those out at the card table out front. So, and when you when your dog or cat gets to be a friend, they get to wear a little bandana. So anyway, I'm sure you'll be anxious to get one for your pet. Well, our reviewer today is Dr. Bobby Dale. He is the author of this children's book, From Rags to Wags, and it is beautifully illustrated by Sarah Beckham. Sarah? She is so talented, and this is her artwork displayed here. There are a lot of Presbyterians here today, so I'm sure I'll be telling you things you already know. But anyway, Bobby Dale is a retired emergency physician who spends much of his time outdoors doing things like hunting turkeys, deer, and other things. So, but he also loves animals. He doesn't just hunt them. And he and Martha are big supporters of the Tupelo-Lee Humane Society, and all of the proceeds from this book will go to that wonderful organization. They have been so instrumental in helping that organization. Bobby's other books are Double Gobble, Reflections of a Turkey Hunter, Turkey Roost Tales, and Bearded Rednecks Showing Their Tails and Strutting Their Stuff. In addition, he has also published Rainbow, a children's book. He wrote for his daughter Susan and his grandson Wyndham, and he has contributed articles to various outdoor magazines. And reviews of his books may be found on his website. And but this is his latest book. And also Sarah Beckham is a native of the Delta. She's from Leland, but now lives in Tupelo. And after graduating from the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson, she began her career as assistant director and then director of the medical records at South Alabama and then at North Mississippi Medical Center. But she is here today as an artist. Our little dog friends are here, Winkie and Little Guy. And I don't know if you want to bring them up, Martha, just to, people may want to. If they have not met them, they all went to the beauty parlor yesterday because they knew they were coming to the library. But they are special dogs, and they're rescue dogs. And anyway, and Bobby, I will turn this over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, babe. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Never in my wildest did I ever think I'd be up here reviewing a children's book. I'm glad to see a lot of folks I know out there, so maybe you won't expect much. Because you know, my place is in the woods and in the emergency room, so they're not doing formal talks. But I'm glad to be here. I see some teachers in the audience. I was hoping there wouldn't be any English teachers, but there is. Now, Miss Jane was my history teacher, so maybe she won't expect much. Anyway, okay. From Rags to Wags is a children's book, but it's also a book for adults. And I think hopefully you'll see what I mean here shortly. And Babe has already started to introduce my team. This little bitty book took a team to write. I wrote it. Martha, my wife, most of y'all know her. It was her idea and her inspiration that the book came to pass. And Sarah Helen is a wonderful watercolor artist. She did all of these watercolors from photos that I sent her before she ever even met our dogs. Maggie White with Mag Graphics, who couldn't be here today, she's ill, but she basically did the book design, and we think did a wonderful job with that as well. And then so you met Winkie and Little Guy. Sloopy, the dog in the middle, the fish dog, lives in the Florida Keys with my daughter and her husband. So obviously she's not here today too. But this book is a book of their 3 stories, how they went from rags to wags. Hopefully they're living a good life now after a bad beginning. One other person I want to introduce to you to before I get started is Rachel Allred. Rachel is the director for the Humane Society shelter, and she'll be around after we get through to answer any of your questions. We're in a brand new building out there. We're all proud of it. She's doing a good job.
She's doing a wonderful job. Not just a good job, a wonderful job.
I told Martha she needed to do this review, not me. I mean, this is her book, folks, I want to tell you. Because the next on my list here is it's Martha's idea. She's been on the board for several years and just rotated off, but she and a group of her friends got together and they formed an auxiliary, very much like the hospital auxiliary. Raises funds to donate to the hospital. Well, their group is going to be donating fundraising funds to the animal shelter from time to time. And Martha's always in the fundraising mode. And at coffee one morning several months ago, a couple of years ago, she broached me with the idea of writing a children's book with our dogs, our shelter rescue stories in it. And she asked me what I thought about it, and I hadn't had my second cup of coffee, and I told her I didn't think much about it. But for those of you that know her, know that she got her way. We got a book. Anyway, I had already written Winkie's stories a few years back in third person, and I put it in a can, saved it in my computer, and just basically forgot about it. And she kept using that as a pivot point. She said, well, you've already written Winkie's story. All you got to do is do Little Guy and Sloopy. So finally I gave in and I wrote the stories. Well, I wrote them all in third person. And I gave the final drafts that I thought were final to her to read, and she read them. She said, well, I think you told the story very well. I like the way you did it. But she said, but there's just something else about it. And I thought, oh, Lord, here we go. She said, I think they'd do a whole lot better if you wrote them in first person. So I type with these 3 fingers. I was so smart in high school, I didn't take typing. So it was an effort, but I went back and worked on them and made them all, put them all in first person. And so since they're in first person, I'm going to let them basically do this review, and I will supplement here and there and yon. So I'm going to read some excerpts from their stories that'll give you an idea about what's going on in their lives and what's happened to them. Now, the one thing that Martha and I decided we wanted to do with this book, besides try to raise funds for the animal shelter, but was to convey some lessons, especially to children. First of all, we wanted them to take away from this book that it's okay to accept physically and mentally challenged individuals, pets, and people as they are. And the other thing we wanted to convey is it is not okay to be cruel to animals or bully animals, and hopefully these lessons will translate also to people. So hopefully we accomplish that in the text as well. So, as an introduction, I'm going to let Winkie take over. That's my sweetheart right there. Hi, I'm Winkie, a one-eyed Pomeranian mix. Since I'm my dad's favorite pup, he asked me to introduce this book of doggy rescue stories to you. You see, he and my mom are partial to adopting dogs and cats and have fallen on hard times for whatever reason. And they actively support the local animal shelter in Tupelo. Mama served on the board, and the idea for this book is hers. She talked my dad into writing it. Proceeds from the sale of this book will benefit the new animal shelter auxiliary, which will use money to support orphaned animals. The 3 stories in this book are true. You will read about my adopted brother, Little Guy, my cousin Sloopy, and me. We all started life in bad situations, but by going through the rescue adoption process, we now enjoy the good life. Thus the title of the book, From Rags to Wags. And I credit my daughter in the keys with the title. Okay, you will be amazed at Sloopy's travels and how a little guy copes with being physically challenged. Dad lets us tell our stories in first person, whatever that is. We hope that these stories will touch your hearts. There are countless stories with happy endings similar to ours across the country. There are many more that do not end so well. Whether you are an animal person or not, there's no excuse for animal neglect, abuse, or cruelty. So, that's basically the intro. And now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one of these stories. We're not going to read all this, but each one had their own unique beginning, and they all have come to live with us or my daughter in the Keys. And just briefly about Winkie. She's first in the book. Winkie says, I had a rough start. I remember as a small puppy, maybe 2 months old, having a severe injury to my left eye. I can't remember the accident, but I was wandering along one day on a city street and had a sudden pain in my face. Maybe I was hit by a car. Anyway, someone stopped, picked me up, and took me to the local animal shelter. The nice people there seemed so concerned about me, they whisked me straight to a veterinary doctor. She said my eye was injured so badly, too badly to save it. So she operated and removed it. Okay. While I was still recovering at the vet clinic, a man who volunteers at the local animal shelter came to see me. He had heard about my injury and said he was looking for a puppy for his daughter. He was afraid no one would want to adopt a one-eyed puppy, so my doctor assured him that as young as I was, I would easily adapt to having only one eye. Okay, the story changes here. That person was me. I heard through that person. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, Francis. I told you not to expect much. That person was, I was that person, okay. Thank you, Martha. All right. Well, we had heard about this puppy at the vet, and I went by to see it because we were told they thought it was a little Sheltie puppy. And we were partial to Shelties. We'd had some Shelties before. And I went, and they brought and put that little puppy in my arm, and she cradled up right there. She snuggled in there, and I told her then, I said, you coming home and live with me? But to make the story interesting from a children's prospect, what we did was we put Winkie's ownership with my grandchildren. So her story is true, but she in the book she belonged to my grandchildren. So she went on the book. Her story goes on to tell about how she became a certified therapy dog with comfort creatures. She doesn't go around to nursing homes or anything like that, but there was an incident or two where she seemed to bring a lot of pleasure to sick folks. So Martha actually enrolled her in class, and she became a certified comfort creature. And she's her favorite things to do. She rules the backyard. She's an alpha female. The backyard is hers. Anything that comes in the backyard that is not one of her siblings, feline or canine siblings, gets the once over. She's a ratter. She will go to great lengths to try to dig up moles, voles, or whatever else that may invade. She's tough on any snake that might come in the backyard. And she loves treats. She loves to chew on her antlers. She really doesn't do any tricks, but her favorite thing in life to do is ride with me on errands. Now, if I come out dressed in scrub suit going to work, she doesn't look my way. If I come out with my Sunday clothes on, she knows we're going to church or somewhere fancy, and she doesn't look my way. But if I come out dressed in jeans with a shirt and a cap on, she beats me to the back door knowing I'm going to take her with me. She sits in my lap, which I know they say you're not supposed to do, but she sits in my lap. And her favorite places to go, of course, are PetSmart and the bank teller window where they give her treats. Now, occasionally we'll pull away from the teller window. There will be a substitute teller that does not know that Winkie's supposed to get a treat. And as I drive off, Winkie will she'll look back at me like, wait, you might have got your money, but you didn't get my treat. So, all right, so that kind of sums up Winkie. And I'm going to move on now to Sloopy. Hello there. My name is Sloopy. I'm a bobtail black and tan hound mix. Where did I get my name? Well, that's an interesting question. But you know, my whole life has been an interesting adventure. I've been across the United States 3 times and have visited more bodies of water than I can count on my paws. It all began about 13 years ago when I came into this world. I don't remember much about my puppyhood. I remember being lost and wandering about in the woods. I guess you would have called me a stray. One morning I stumbled upon a home in the woods. I was desperate for something to eat, and I could barely walk. I didn't know what to expect, but hoped to find food there. I found an open gate to the backyard and slowly entered it. I just lay down in the grass and waited. What happened next? I met the man who would become my human granddad. He told me to go away before someone named Martha saw me. He said I was skin and bones, was not wearing a collar, and was probably a stray. Maybe someone dropped me off at their house because everyone knew Martha, whoever that was, would want to adopt me because she's a real softie. He said they didn't need any more animals. But I was tired and hungry and kept begging, please don't make me go away. Well, a little background on that. Our older daughter was planning a wedding in our backyard the following week when Sloopy showed up. And at the time, we didn't need the responsibility or the effort to take care of another dog. Hey, that's not mine. That's my ring. That's my ring, though. Anyway, so yeah, I coaxed her out of the backyard and shut the gate. What happened? Well, this gets better. What happened was there was a man doing landscape work in our backyard, and I thought Sloopy was his dog. She was just lying out there in our backyard, and he had left it open. So after a while, I went out and I said, sir, is that your dog? And he said, no, I've never seen her before. So I walked over to her, and she just turned over on her back like, please. And I said, you got to leave here. We're trying to get ready for this wedding. You got to go. Come on. So she came. I got her out. I shut the gate. And surely enough, about 30 minutes later, where is it? I'll just read it here.
I found her.
I know. I told you could do this review if you wanted to. Anyway, 30 minutes later, Martha and our daughter, Mary Margaret, drive up, and I hear Martha say, oh my goodness, look at you, you sweet thing, you're starving to death. I'm going to feed you right now. And Mary Margaret says, oh, you have the saddest eyes and the prettiest, sweetest face. I just love you already. I told Martha, I said, do not feed her, please. She will never go home. She said, what home? Nobody's feeding her. She's starving to death. I am too going to feed her. I'm feeding her right now. And so, we added Sloopy to the menagerie. Mary Margaret and her husband Keith got back from their honeymoon and said, well, we decided we would like to have Sloopy. I said, well, that's great, but y'all live in Reno, Nevada. How you want to get her out there? So Martha, her cousin Sarah McCullough, decided to load up a van, not load up, I'm sorry, not to load a van with wedding presents, furniture, and Sloopy. And they took a 3-day road trip going by places of interest on the way out to take Sloopy to Nevada. So it turns out that Sloopy, although she looked like a hound, she looked like a black and tan bobtail hound dog, might have been a deer hound, who knows. Turns out that she is a fishing dog. She had a fascination for water. She looks in a river, the ocean, or a lake, right on the side. She don't want to get much in the water, but she'll look. And she stares at things under the water, and it became apparent to Mary Margaret and Sugar, that's her husband's nickname, that she was seeing fish. And occasionally she would actually jump in with her muzzle and try to catch stuff. Well, one day she came out with a rainbow trout in her mouth. So she's been deemed a black and tan fish hound. So anyway, their travels, they have moved since from Reno. Mary Margaret went back to get her master's degree at Florida State, so they lived in Florida, and now they live in the Florida Keys. And in their travels, they've been back and forth across the country 3 times. Sloopy's dipped her paws in the Great Salt Lake, the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, Florida Bay, in the Everglades, and the Atlantic Ocean. The only place she has not been to fish is in the Great Salt Lakes.
Great Lakes.
I believe they're the Salt Lakes too. The Great Lakes, they have salt water in them.
Listen to your editor.
Can we get security in here, please? I begged her to do this. Anyway, okay, that's Sloopy. Sloopy enjoys her life now. She still likes to go fishing. Her dad is a charter boat captain in the Florida Keys out of Alamorada. She loves to go fishing with her dad on the boat. She likes her naps, she likes her treats, and she loves her walks. And she was with us over Christmas, and she's just fell right in there with the menagerie again. Okay, that's Sloop. Oh, she got her name from Hang On Sloopy. Okay.
You're right, Bobby, I looked it up. That's right.
What about it?
You're right, it was the great, you could say either way.
Ellen, would you turn about 180 degrees?
I looked it up.
The Great Salt Lake, but the Great Lakes are freshwater. She has not been
The whole
in.
group is not the great Salt Lake, you're right. But it does work.
No, I really apologize for this domestic dispute. Okay, may I proceed, Martha? Thank you, darling.
Not as bossy as you may say. Please, just say it first.
You can imagine coffee before my second cup. Okay, in enters little guy. All right. Well, you took him out of his race car, Mom. Okay, little guy takes up. Hi there, I'm Little Guy. I'm a Yorkshire Terrier mixed pup. I'm happy now, but my early days were not happy at all. My first owner was not nice to me. I guess you could say I was abused. He yelled at me and sometimes even hit me for no reason. I don't know why he was so mad. He was just what they call a bully. One day he struck me across my back with a stick, and suddenly I couldn't feel my back legs, and they just quit working. All I could do was drag myself around with my front legs, and my tummy became sore from it. I wanted out of that situation as quickly as possible and ran away one day when he left the gate open. Well, since I just had 2 good legs, I couldn't go far, but at least I was gone from there. My owner didn't seem to care either. I don't think anyone even looked for me. I was alone on the side of a country road, dragging myself along. It was getting dark and it started to rain. I was lost and wondering what I was going to do when a car came along and stopped. The driver got out, picked me up, and put me in her car. She was a nice lady who could see I was hurt and wet. She said she would take me to the animal shelter, whatever that was. I just hoped it would be better than what I'd left. So that night, she left me in a cage at the front door of a dark building. It was so cold, and it kept raining all night long. But at least she left me under a blanket with some food. Boy, I was really scared. So the next morning, some nice people arrived and made a fuss over me. They wrapped me in a warm towel, gave me a bath, and fed me some really delicious chow. I found out what an animal shelter is. It's a building where homeless dogs and cats live. They kept hugging and kissing me, saying how cute I was in the cartoon character baby diapers they put on me to help me stay clean. I'd never been treated so kindly before. I knew I was in a good, safe place and moving up. There were a lot of other dogs and cats there too. So the shelter folks took little guy to the vet. Vet said he was paralyzed and basically couldn't be helped in his lower legs. And they took little guy back and just let him have run of the mill in the old shelter building, if you've been in there. And he became a greeter. He would drag himself up to people when they would come in to the shelter, and he would bark and so forth. Well, Martha was on the board then, and she took the mail by there one day. It was the week before Christmas, 7 years ago. And little guy dragged himself up to her and barked, and she reached down and picked him up, cuddled him, and decided to bring him home for the weekend for us to shelter. We were going to foster him just for a few days and give him a break, and so that was 7 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago. So we decided to keep him, that the diaper changes wouldn't be bad. And he had all kind of personality. He just loved being with us. So it was not long after that we read an article in the journal about hydrotherapy at Mississippi State for dogs and other animals with paralytic injuries. So Martha called, made an appointment, took a little guy down there for them to evaluate. Well, they agreed with the vet here there was nothing to be done for his hind legs and his paralysis. But he suggested, why don't you just go eat lunch and let's see what we can do with him. So she did and came back a couple hours later. And the doctor came out and opened the door, and he told Martha, he said, now call him. And she called little guy, and out he burst in his cart, his red race car. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you something. If he's off that leash and he has a mind, you will not catch him. He does not know he's paralyzed. He enjoys life just like all our other dogs do. When we walk them all, it's a circus. We walk our 4 dogs, we have them all on the leash, and he wants to be the lead dog. He can't stand being the one behind. So that's how he came to live with us. His favorite thing, he's the alpha male in the house. And he, as well as all the rest of them, bark when somebody comes to the front door. But if it's a man and I'm not there, he gets between Martha and the man, and he will not let any guy get close to Martha. He'll challenge him. Not that he can do much with teeth that long, but she had some guys came to come over to clean our carpets one day, and one of them just somehow got too close to Martha, and the little guy took after him. He ran that big 6'2" man out the back door. Now, little guy can go down steps. Those back wheels bounce off steps. And he ran that man all around the backyard with Martha and the other two guys just sitting there just laughing. But they finally made friends and went on, and the little guy has never bitten anybody, thank goodness. His favorite things to do are basically chew on his antlers. He likes to be the center of attention. He likes to go on errands too. He helps Winkie. He backs Winkie up in the backyard with. It's Winkie's job to find the stray critters, and then he goes after them with her. Let's see, what else, Martha? What are other things he liked to do?
He likes to eat.
Well,
He likes to
he got into a loaf of bread one time in the cabinet, and that was another issue. He ate just about the entire loaf of bread. And actually, it says here, I helped myself to a whole loaf of bread. Wow, was I ever bloated. Yeah. Okay. He occasionally will get his back wheels hung in a bush in the backyard, and we'll find a cart, and we can't find a little guy. He'll be out in the bushes somewhere. Well, one day, a while back, I was looking for him, and I called him and called him and called him. And his head popped up in the azaleas. And it looked just like that. It looked just like he was in a Christmas wreath. And I took that picture. So anyway, all right. So that's my life story. I went from being abused and bullied to being adopted by way of our local animal shelter into a loving family. Even though I'm paralyzed, I'm a whole pup in my mind and abilities. I've been blessed. My health is good, and I can still outrun anyone in my red race car, and I'm always ready for my next adventure. Winkie's the same way. She had one eye since she was just a very small puppy, and she's adapted well. She can catch a treat in midair. She does not need the depth perception apparently, because she can see. She sees things across the street that we can't see. Both Martha and Lee. Both Martha and I can't see. So here's a postscript that I wrote. You may think you would not want to be burdened with a paraplegic or other physically challenged animal, but I can assure you our lives have been blessed by little guy being part of our family. The joy he brings us far outweighs tending his plumbing and diaper changes. It's sad to think, had we not adopted him, he probably would have been euthanized. Folks, there are so many wonderful animals in shelters across the country. When you consider getting a pet, go to your local shelter and check out the possibilities. Many of the animals have been dealt a bad hand and need a second chance in life. They can bring you more happiness than you can ever imagine. Also, I encourage you to spay or neuter your pets to lessen the overabundance of unwanted and stray animals. Please support your local animal shelter for all the good they do. Volunteer to help them, even if you can't adopt an animal. Maybe you could give an hour or two weekly to help with animal care at the shelter, or even foster an animal for a short time. The opportunities are endless, and remember, there is no substitute for kindness to all creatures. In the back of the book are some random photos that we took of the 3 stars of the shelter here. We have 2 other shelter dog rescues at home that I'm just waiting on Martha to
They're normal.
No, they ain't normal. I meant to say ain't too. There ain't nothing in my house normal. But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity. I would like for Sarah Helen to come up and tell a little bit about herself. She is just a wonderful watercolor artist, and I'm quite taken. The way I found out about her art abilities is we had a fundraiser at church a year, 2 years ago, and there was a silent auction, and the funds were to go to our water mission. And there was this painting, a watercolor painting of a wild turkey in full strut. The Babe's already told you I'm a turkey hunter and enthusiast, and I appreciate good turkey art. And the more I studied that picture, the more I realized it was as perfect as I'd ever seen. And I was really taken by it. And Sarah Helen had painted it, and I had no idea that she was an artist. And we've been worked together at the hospital ever since we moved back here 20 years ago. She was head of the medical records department, and she and I had a few encounters over medical records, but I won't if you won't. Anyway, that's past, because she doesn't do that anymore, and I don't either. So anyway, I'd like for Sarah Helen to just come up and tell you a little bit about how she got into that.
Well, Dr. Dale started off saying he'd never thought he would be up here talking about a children's book, and believe me, if you had told me that I was going to be up here a year ago talking about a painting in a children's book, I would have looked at you like you have lost your mind, because this is the last thing that I ever thought that I would be involved with. But I want to say just how grateful I am to have been a part of this project. It has just been a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I'm thankful to the Dales. They have been great to work with, and they had confidence in my abilities, and there are so many artists in this town that would have loved to have had the opportunity, so I feel very fortunate and blessed to have been a part of it. I'm glad we could bring some of the originals, and because I think they do show some color that I think the book does a great job, but I'm glad we could share those with you today. My story is very boring, and I won't take very long, because I have really had no formal training. I've taken some park and rec classes when I lived in Mobile. I took some classes when I moved to Tupelo. I can't remember if it was with ICC or with Park and Rec here, but I took just some, very informal classes. And then I found Joanne Wood. I don't know if any of y'all remember her. She died about 6 years ago. She owned the gallery art store on Gloucester. Do y'all remember that many years ago? But then she's closed that store, and she started teaching at Hobby Lobby one night a week, and I went there, and she taught me probably the most of what I know about. She was really a oil color. That was her primary medium, but she taught me a whole lot about paper and brushes and quality of paints and that kind of thing, and then helped me, as I painted, and gave me a lot of constructive criticism. But that's really all I've had. And then the people that took from her in that group continued to meet. Even after she died, that group kept meeting, and I was able to, there were many years with my daughter and also with my work, I didn't really have time to go to that class, but have returned to that in the past couple of years, and that has been a real support group for me. They will tell you that they had to look at all of these pictures when I would finish and say, okay, what do you see? It's just like proofreading. You're your own worst proofreader if you're trying to see something there. So when you have another set of eyes that can look, they would say, well, you need to do this or think about that. So they were a great help to me, and I certainly want to give them credit for that. I just always have loved watercolor. I grew up in Leland. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been through Leland or not, but there's just a really pretty creek that goes through. They call it Deer Creek, and has beautiful cypress trees and ducks that are always swimming on the water. And there was a local watercolor artist named Polly Cooper, and she painted watercolor, and I think that's kind of my early growing up years. She was someone I always admired, and I think I remember her teaching us how to draw a tree in Bible school one time, but just having, I don't know, that watercolor is just always, I've been drawn to that more than oils or acrylics or anything else. So I hope maybe I can continue with some more formal training and advance my skills, but I've been, like I said, I've been so fortunate to be able to do this, and the Dales have been so great to work with. Any questions? Thank you.
There's one picture I'm going to hold up that's not here of Sloopy with her fishing hat on. That was so good that we had it framed and gave to our daughter over Christmas. It says, "Go fish."
I love his eyes.
Yeah. Well, babe, I think I'm done. We have some books here to, if anybody would like to have a copy.
Anyone would like a copy, they'll be selling books. And all the money goes to the shelter.
Yeah.
Rachel back here is available for questions if anybody would like to know something about the shelter, how to adopt, foster.
Now, if you would like a cute little bandana, or like Winkie has here, Vivian will be out here selling friends for your pet. Memberships. Pardon?
Did the Dale support the animal shelter? They support the library.
Yes, that supports the library, and you buy the book and you support the shelter. So anyway, this is a great opportunity to give to worthy causes.
I meant to ask, did anybody have any questions about any of the dogs? Yes, ma'am.
I have one. It's not about the dogs. Did you present a program a few years ago on hunting wild turkeys?
I did, right here. It was a little bit different for me.
I wasn't interested in hunting wild turkeys, but the program was so interesting.
Well, thank you.
So funny.
Thank you. I enjoyed doing that.
We enjoyed it.
See, I know things about wild turkey hunting that Martha can't criticize me about. But I had free reign that day. Well, thank you for remembering that. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Y'all have a good day.